Morning. It's May 10th, 2026, Mother's Day. I heard a lot of you when you're checking in saying Happy Mother's Day. I had a different thought on that a little bit. I want you to have a happy Mother's Day if you're a mother. But I think of mothers, what a sacred opportunity they have to be a mother and to raise another child of God and get them going in the right direction. It's just an incredible opportunity. So today we're going to go over again our 10th time this book. It's a parable book. God is in the Garden by Del Hall 4. And we've got two today we'll probably get through. These are parables. And for somebody that's not familiar with parables, they're seemingly simple stories, true stories in my son's life about daily things. But the parables, they're called parables because there's a lot of spiritual principles kind of woven within seemingly simple stories. And these spiritual principles, if we flesh them out today, we seem to as a group, they give us spiritual principles to help us live a better life, more balanced, more abundant, in so many different ways. There's so much wisdom in these seemingly simple stories. So the first one today will be the Sandbox. And we're blessed again 10 times in a row to have the author, Del Hall 4. And I guess what we'll do is like we usually do is Del, you'll read it, and then we'll open it up and we'll see if we can find some of the hidden pearls of wisdom in this seemingly simple story about a sandbox. So good to see you all this morning. Hi, Del.
Hey, good morning.
Morning.
Ready to go?
All set.
All right, here we go. The Sandbox. A few years ago, we finally downsized our swing set. When in its prime, it was glorious to behold and provided hours of solid play. It had a central tower with a platform access from a ladder and a canvas roof. Underneath that was a sandbox. Off of that structure were two swings. Two wings. One was a long monkey bar with a tire swing, rings, and something else. The other extension had all swings. Maxed out at a birthday party, that thing was a sight to behold. The girls were grown now, and even though they enjoyed it occasionally, it wasn't getting enough use to rationalize keeping it any longer. It had also now become a hazard due to its age and solid usage over the years. It was stoutly built, and it took what the girls threw at it like a champ, but nothing wood in that lives out in the wind and the rain lasts forever. The sandbox underneath it didn't help either because by holding moisture, which contributed to parts of it rotting. Pieces were now breaking off, and nails were starting to make themselves seen. Even patch jobs I had made over the years where I used screws rather than nails were starting to fail. The time had come and it was bittersweet. I salvaged what I could and found one new 4x4 so that I could. So at the end of the day, we ended up with a simple, small swing set with 3 swings. It is still satisfying, even though it was only a shadow of the original setup and Playhouse's glory. We live in a temporal world, and all things of the flesh must eventually come to an end, even really nice playscapes. Our 3 little girls had grown into 3 gorgeous and wonderful young ladies, which was the weirdest thing because my wife and I were still the same age as when they were first born. Each one of them is talented and wonderful in their own unique way. When I took when I took down the swing set, I put all the wood scraps in the pile I used for fallen branches over the side of the hill, and then I moved all the sand from a large sandbox to a small beach area next to our future pond site. The story of the pond and trying to get it to hold water could be a parable of its own someday, but today is not the day. The next few rains revealed where I had put the sand, some small pieces of old plastic toys which had nobly lived and died in the sandbox at some point. They had become brittle, and the sun had long stolen their color. Seeing them brought back memories of the girls when they were younger and happily playing in the sandbox through the years with various installments of plastic sand toys. It also brought back a memory of how I was initially attached to what kind of toys they were going to have. It's funny when you enter a new venture, the picture you have in your head of how it's going to be, even though you have no clue on the subject, and then how quickly that can all change. For me, it was with our daughter's toys. I don't think it was the first thing I said when I found out we were going to be parents, but it was an early decree laid forth with great authority to be upheld from that day forth at all costs. Thou shalt not be any cheap plastic, colorful. There shall not be any cheap, colorful plastic toys in our house or yard. No, no, no. I will make all of our children's toys by hand, all of them. So saith the future dad. Well, that lasted about, well, actually, that didn't last at all. I think in less than a week or two of the news had spread, we were expecting our first child, and gifts of love in the form of toys all began arriving at our house. And you guessed it, not one of this initial batch was hand carved or made of natural material. They were quite the contrary. The brightest colors you could possibly imagine in every material imaginable other than natural wood, mostly plastic. Well, now, what is a first time dad who has a head full of ideas on how to raise a kid with nothing to back it up to do? Roll with it, I guess, and so I did. These friends and family had expressed their love and well wishes to our new addition in their own way, in a way they thought would make our soon to be child happy, and they were right. It wasn't what I would have initially picked, but I was working with a limited knowledge of the subject, one I had formed from my preferences and not based on any real world experience. Our daughter ended up loving most of those gifts and would spend hours with them once she was old enough to actually sit up and play with them. And there and there were some wooden blocks in the mix, which did get some solid action too. But I must admit, she would have missed out on a whole lot of fun without some of that stuff. When the barnyard animals actually moo and cluck at you, it definitely takes fun to a whole another level. The toys in the sandbox may not have had the ability to make noise, but they made up for it in color and brightness. To think I even considered letting the simple hang up of no cheap plastic toys deny my daughters hours of fun in the house and outside is beyond silly, but I'm not losing sleep over it. It was what it was. I quickly saw at the time that it was ridiculous and I pivoted. What more can you ask of yourself? Do you expect yourself to have it figured out before you even start? I'm not that clever. What I do need to do is get a head start on making some wooden blocks for future grandchildren someday. With three daughters, it is certainly within the realm of possibility that perhaps one of them will get on the only wooden toys kick and actually stick to it. Could be genetic, and if so, I need to get a head start, especially if all three do it.
Thank you, Dell.
You're welcome.
Cool. The Sandbox. I remember that going down as grandpa, going down and when the kids had parties and other kids would come over. It was quite a sight to see in its
Yeah.
glory. But things changed down here. So I'll hold back for a few minutes. I see all kinds of neat pearls of wisdom in this story, but the story itself reminds me of some good times with the kids when Dell and Kate lived on the mountains and the girls running around, and we could see them often throughout the day. Anybody like to start? Remember parables? It's a great story, but what are some of the spiritual principles that might help us live a better life? Anybody? Yeah, Irv. Morning, Irv.
I saw a tie-in with this story to the previous one, Stay Open, uh, where he stayed supple and he had an idea of how he would like things to go. But when the situation changed, he rolled with it, and it benefited his daughters because he stayed supple like that, because they really enjoyed those the plastic, different plastic toys. And it reminds me of, we talked about how old ideas and can become clutter. They no longer serve us well. And if we stay open, our life is going to be better because God might show us a better way to do things, something that'll meet our needs better, and as he said in other stories, make our hearts sing. So by staying open, he blessed his daughters here, and by him being willing to be supple.
Yeah, I like that. He was pretty rigid. I remember that on making handmade wooden toys. But I think there's a lesson like you're bringing us about life. There's not a real manual. When when you go through life, you learn. We kind of learn as we go. And I think the people that do the best are the ones that when they learn something different than they thought, they adjust, they make a change, and like you said, I think supple. They change their views a little bit after they have a real experience. I think those, and I remember one of his parables. I think he talked about the poplar trees way back early in this whole discourse of this book, how they may lose a branch in a heavy wind, but they don't topple over completely. Now, you give up a little bit, your views, your attitudes about things, but you're not broken when things change. And I think he mentioned a different tree that hangs onto their branches so rigid and they're not flexible, the whole tree would blow over. I think I see a parallel through several of these parables, or that as we learn and get new information, I think it's healthy to adjust and change and not be overly rigid. I think is that what you're bringing to us now?
Yes, yes.
Yeah, I think we get through life a lot with a lot less wear and tear as we learn and we get new information, we experience things, and we'll see that in the next one, the ridge. When we experience things for ourselves and it's different than our preconceived ideas, I think it's healthy to make adjustments. I'd be okay with that. So thank you. Anybody else? That's a good topic. Yeah. Morning, James. James from way out west.
Yeah,
It's early for you today.
it is, but I wouldn't
Great.
miss it for
Okay.
anything. Thank
Well,
you.
good morning.
Good morning. Page 116, at the end of that paragraph, it's just a beautiful example of dealing with change with a little humor. Our three little girls had grown into three gorgeous and wonderful young ladies, which was the weirdest thing because my wife and I were still the same age as when they were first born.
Yes.
I just love that.
Yeah.
It's just teaches us one way to roll with change with humor. Just a beautiful example.
Well, like Irv said, when you get new information, I think life's easier if we make adjustments and don't stay too rigid, if we're more supple, but also have a little humor. I think that helps life. I think a humor, one of our prayers, Hugh, an ancient name for God, but humor. I mentioned this at a retreat years ago, I think. Can you imagine if there wasn't humor in our life?
Hmm.
I don't know how, or love, many things, but humor is so precious. And I find in most of his parables, even though there's serious spiritual principles, I usually get a chuckle or two. So thanks for bringing that out to us. Anybody else? Carmen. Morning, Mark and Carmen.
Good morning, Prophet. I saw a tie-in between the key of spiritual growth and the fact that D4, he wasn't afraid he replaced what he thought he knew with his actual experience, and he grew. And he wasn't afraid to be wrong either. He didn't, get upset about that he didn't know beforehand how to, like, what toys the girls were going to love. He just rolled with it. And there was a lot of beautiful growth that happened from that.
Right. For him and for the girls.
Right.
Right. There's kind of a theme going here with Irv brought up being supple and not being rigid because of vanity or whatever. It's okay to get new information, you can make new choices. And I
Right.
think that's a nice way to get through life where we grow and learn, but we don't break or don't topple over completely in a heavy wind like that parable of the tree because we're flexible. Having some humor, not taking things too serious, new information, making changes. I think this is a nice theme in this. And I think having life where you didn't have humor, you were very rigid. And once you set your mind to something, you couldn't change no matter how much information. I think that'd be a tough way to live. I see your kitty's enjoying it, just jumped on your lap. Hello, kitty. What's your kitty's name?
This is Donnie.
Hi. Good morning,
Hi.
kitty.
Meow.
So, Jorge, thank you. Thank you,
Thank-
Carmen. Jorge, good morning, Jorge.
Morning, Prophet. Something that really caught my attention at the end, where he pivoted, right, and he let go of that desire that he had that it be wooden toys, but he talks about how maybe his granddaughters will or his daughters will want wooden toys. There's something about he had in his heart maybe that he loves making things out of wood, and I can see how that was maybe a dream he had, a way for him to give in his own way. So he pivoted, but he didn't completely let go either of his what was in his heart. So it's like he's still keeping it alive by, hey, maybe the granddaughters will benefit from what he wanted to give.
I think you picked up an interesting observation, Jorge. Dell, my son, loves woodworking. It's something that he finds great joy in. He also wrote a parable or two about his wood shop back in here, even the curls, the shavings that come off when you plane. He really has an eye for wood, the different grains. So I think he picked up something really interesting. I don't know if I picked up on. It was a way he wanted to give love. He loves woodworking, and that was a way for him to express his love to his girls. But he yielded his way of expressing love. And I think they probably grew up having more fun with some wooden blocks, a few of them, but also having the colorful plastic toys. But I think he picked up why he was so drawn. And I don't know if I picked up on that. So thank you. Because he has a great love for working in his wood shop and creating things out of a piece of wood and then making something functional and giving it as a gift or whatever. So I think that was a way, like his love language, one way he wanted to express love. But he yielded that, which we've talked about 3 times, to be what's best for the girls. And probably they had more fun with all the plastic toys in the long run. That's a really good observation. Any thoughts on that, Dell? I know your love for woodworking. Maybe that was how you want to
Yeah,
express your love to your
that's a
girls.
nice nuance to that. I hadn't thought of that,
Yeah, thank you. Very cool. That might be something where we tend to. There was a book years ago we read up at the school, 5 love languages, how different people express or receive love. And if you don't express it the way they can receive it, sometimes there's a disconnect. I remember that. Reminds me of that book. But I think it's nice if you want to express the love a certain way, that's kind of your love language. But it's nice to yield if you really want to express love. It's nice to be flexible and find the way the person can receive the love, even if it's different than the way you would like to express it. I think that's a really neat insight. Somebody else, I saw a hand a moment ago. Lawrence. Morning, Lawrence. Professor, we should say. Professor Lawrence.
Good morning.
Morning.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of right on the topic, especially because you were just talking about love. Because I was thinking, this whole thing, it's so much about giving and receiving love. And that makes me think of like when we're rigid or too attached to our own ideas, we block love. We don't allow possibly God's love to reach us, or the love of others to reach us or other people we love. We, by being too locked into our own ideas, we're, I see in this case, there were people in Dell's life who wanted to give love to his children. And so there's a ripple effect that if we're rigid, we don't allow others around us to give love, and we're blocking that. And then the other thought I had was back to like what Jorge said about he still had a dream in his heart of how he wanted to give love, but he was willing to yield it. And it just makes me think about God's timing. Like you could have a dream or a vision for something, but knowing God's timing is better than ours. So maybe it was a timing thing for how he was able to give love.
Yeah. Maybe one of the grandkids will love wooden toys and not like plastic. So maybe there'll be another opportunity. Yeah. Thank you. Thanks, Lawrence. Anybody else? Gary. Morning, Gary.
Good morning. What I saw on like the first page, 115, was the law of economy. He had taken something that had gone past its value and cleaned up his life. Like why hang on to something it's a hazard, it's falling apart. And I wonder how many of us do hang on to things because there's emotional value, you remember the time, but the things falling apart, people can get hurt. So the law of economy is cleaning up your life and get rid of the things that don't have value anymore.
Yeah, that's something we spent the last year on is up at the retreat center. I call it clutter. Clutter are things that are wasting your time, energy, or coin or focus, but maybe they didn't start out as clutter. And the swing set was glorious in its prime when the girls were young using it and their friends would come over. It was a beautiful thing to watch all the kids playing there. So it was not clutter at one point, is kind of what you're saying. But at a certain point, the girls weren't using it much. It was more of a hazard. It became clutter. It was not worth keeping around. So certain things, you have a certain say a certain hobby and you enjoy it at a certain age, and then eventually you kind of outgrow it, but you keep spending time and money on it, even though you don't get the satisfaction. Something that was once good and worth your time, energy, and focus, if it no longer is satisfying, it becomes clutter. Or stuff around your house or in a room or your desk, it's all messy, it's fine for a while, and then one day you outgrow the mess and you want to clean up your desk. So what was okay at one time becomes clutter. I think that goes back to what Irv said initially about being flexible. When something has value in your life and it, as my mom would say, pays rent, there's something you gain from spending your time or effort on, then great. But if as you grow and you change and you evolve, if that no longer, I think of in the Bible, when you're a child, you do childish things. But when you're an adult, the childish things really don't feel appropriate anymore. They're not satisfying. They become clutter. They're just a waste of time and energy. They become a distraction. And in this case, Gary, it became maybe a hazard where somebody could actually get hurt on it. And it even became an eyesore. It didn't look as nice as it used to with the boards falling off. But I think that's a lesson in life in general. A lot of things we get attached to and enjoy at a certain stage of our life, they may not bring us the satisfaction or the enjoyment they used to, but you're wasting your time and focus and energy on it. That's when they become a distraction from something that was not a distraction. So almost everything in life can eventually become clutter if we outgrow it or our tastes move on, our interests move on. That's one of the biggest thing I get out of this, the Sandbox. It was so amazing those early years with the girls to go down, and I remember sitting on it and swinging on it and doing the monkey bars and seeing the girls that were very strong could do all the monkey bars, yeah, upper body strength. And then it just, everybody outgrew it. It was time to move on. So to hang on to things that no longer bring any satisfaction or joy, it's just a waste of time and energy. Use your time and energy and focus for something that you do find useful. So thanks, Gary. That's the big thing I put up by the title, the Sandbox Clutter. That this beautiful sandbox that had a place up on top, like a tower, and all these different attachments, started out wonderful, but it no longer had value or much value. It became clutter. I think that applies in so many areas of our life. Thank you. Anybody else? Jess from Utah. You're up early too. Idaho, I mean, Idaho.
It's okay.
Utah was a different life.
Yeah.
Idaho.
I love how this story really, to me, highlights a beautiful way of detaching, where if we stay attached to things, maybe at a certain point of our life, a past part of our life, even something that brought us a lot of joy, then we can be blocked, like Lawrence said, we can block gifts of love. And I love that D4 kind of talks us through this story of how he detached and let go of this lovely time of life when the sandbox and the play structure had kind of, it was time for that to be different. And then with the girls, he was able to kind of be open to those gifts of love with the toys. And then as he's seeing these little pieces of plastic kind of come up in the sand, little remnants of the toys even, you know, in one sense, you could maybe be irritated or something, but he doesn't. He actually sees those little remnants as reminding him of a time of love and joy in his life. And so it's almost as though when he detached, he let go of what was no longer serving everyone, but he retained the love and the memories of love. And so it lived on in a more enduring way, perhaps. And I think Heavenly Father and Prophet bring that into our lives a lot if we have the eyes to see, to just, you know, be open to that love and let him show us where it is, and keep the thing that still serves us.
I really like that. He was attached to wooden toys, but he yielded. He's attached to this beautiful play center with a tower, swings, monkey bars, but at a certain point he yielded it. And then the sand, and then the little toys came up. But each time it reminded him of the good memories and back of that time, but he detached from the specific ways it was happening. Rather than having regrets, he moved on, but he still felt the love and the joy and the good memories. I really like that. Yeah, some people could have the sand for his future beach, and then these plastic toys come up when the rain washes on the sand. Little pieces of toys faded now, not as bright, and be annoyed. But he had that. It brought back beautiful memories when it was bright and not a little piece, but a whole toy. I like that. So if we're going to move on in life and things change as we grow, I think it's really neat to be flexible like we started out, but maybe not so flexible on giving up the love. Hang on to that. Hang on to the good memories, but then move on and make new memories. That's really beautiful. And it's all through here, both in the sandbox, the whole play area, and in the wooden toys. He was able to detach and move on from that type of that life or those memories, but he did not detach from the great memories and the love it reminded him of. I like that. I like detaching and moving on, but hang on to the beautiful memories and the love and the joy that those earlier times brought. That's really beautiful. Thank you.
I think to
What?
compound that, he also didn't feel bad about his limited views previously. He was like, yep, I had kind of a funny view. It was limited at first, and then, you know, my view got to be changed. And so there wasn't like a pang of guilt. Oh, remember when I was so silly? You know, it was, at least that's what I took from it. He just got that love memory. So
I think in our Spiritual Keys book, and it's basically was given to me by the Father, Spiritual Keys from More Abundant Life. It's basically teaching us how to do the things that the Bible asks us to do. And in the very first parts of the book, there's a key spiritual principle of thoughts and attitudes. And he shows all the way through, he has a beautiful way of looking at things. He doesn't feel bad about himself because he had to go in a different direction. He's not rigid. He's not upset with the sand having pieces of plastic. It actually brought him remembrance of love when the girls were little. I think he shows all the way through this parable, the sandbox, a beautiful attitude about life that makes life a lot easier and more enjoyable to live. Thanks for bringing that to us. Yeah, his thoughts and attitudes all the way through are beautiful. His flexibility, he detaches from things. He put a lot of effort into building that play center, but he knew it was time it had become clutter. It was no longer useful, but he didn't feel bad about it. He didn't feel he wasted the time. It did what it was supposed to do when the girls were young. All the way through, he has a beautiful attitude about life. I don't know if I saw that as clear until you brought that to us, Jess. A lot easier to live life with that type of attitude because things change. We grow and evolve, relationships change. Beautiful. Boy, did you have something also?
Yes, thank you. On page 116, the last sentence there of the first paragraph, each one of them is talented and wonderful in their own unique way. D4 is talking about his daughters, and it just, the love and appreciation he has for his daughters, but also it reminded me of, God's love for us and how each one of his children, we're unique, and he appreciates our individual and uniqueness. It's what it reminded me of.
We've learned the Heavenly Father appreciates each of our individual uniqueness. Sometimes I like to say when he made you, each of us, he broke the mold. We're each different. Actually, I see a little thing I underlined on that same page, Moy. I hadn't noticed for a while, but I underlined it. It's in the middle of the first part of the paragraph. We live in a temporal physical world, and all things of the flesh must eventually come to an end. Even really nice playscapes. I think if somebody really accepts the truth of that, everything down here in the physical world is eventually ends. That's why Jesus in Matthew, I think 33 suggests we invest more in the heavenly treasures, things that are permanent, they can't be lost or stolen. I think all through this story, the sandbox, we're learning that everything in the temporal changes and evolves, or wooden swings deteriorate. And I think if you go through life knowing that things are going to change and evolve and not stress over it, I think it'd be a lot easier and a lot less wear and tear on us. So thank you for that. I hadn't noticed that till you got me to that page. That's why we spend a lot of our time investing in the heavenly treasures. We enjoy the temporal world, but realize it's not permanent. So we enjoy it, but that shows we need to be flexible since things are not permanent. Relationships, careers, health, everything tends to change down here. And if we get the thoughts and attitudes to roll with the punches and move on and not be too rigid, like we started with Irv's conversation this morning, I think what we're getting, maybe the essence of this parable, that's a whole lot less wear and tear on us if we roll with life rather than get overly rigid and tight, because we have no control over down here. Things change. So thanks for getting me to that page, Moy. Thorne, you had something? Morning, Thorne. Morning, Diana.
Morning, Prophet. Thank you. Yeah, same page. Two things at the top and bottom is that you said evolve, and he took the old swing set, but he also turned it into 3 new swings. So with a simple 4x4, and he took the sand and he repurposed it. It's almost as if you don't get rid of everything, and you've helped us with that, which is if we have an old characteristic that didn't quite serve us well, that we don't throw the whole thing away. that it can get repurposed, it can get reused, recycled, or even better, it can evolve. And I love that. He didn't throw everything away. I love that.
I like that. It makes me think as we move on from one part of our life and we kind of move on because we've outgrown it, for example, or we no longer find satisfaction in it. We can still, and it goes back to what Jeff says, we can have the remembrance, the good stuff, or maybe a piece of the experience of an old hobby or relationship. We can become a better person and take a little piece of something and move on. He didn't give up his love for woodworking. He's looking at maybe the grandkids will want some wooden toys. He didn't completely take down this great, it was really stunning with the tower and all the different wings. He didn't take the whole thing down at once. He took most of it down, but he repaired part of it and still had a small wing set. I like that. So if something in life is important to us and we outgrow it over time, it doesn't mean we have to give up all the memories or all the lessons. We could take some of the stuff and move it on to the next stage of our life. I really like that. Thank you. Thank you. That's really cool. Yeah, Jason. Morning, Jason and Ruth.
Thanks. Good morning. I
Hi.
really like what you were saying there, and I like what D4 is showing us this as an example in his life. We have learned so many wonderful things about God's ways and teachings that you've shown us. In here, it talks about gratitude and how his friends expressed their love in their own way and he accepted it. And it talks about a pivot, and it shows his thoughts and attitudes in seeing God's love in his life and the abundance. And I see so many people around in the world that don't know that God wants an abundant life for us or that they can have an abundant life. And the keys in this book really show us that that's available for us, and our life could be so much more blessed if we're grateful and change our thoughts and attitudes in some direction.
Okay. Thank you. Thanks, Jason. Anybody else? Mark? Hi, Mark.
Good morning. I keep thinking about being open and receptive in the way we allow Heavenly Father and others to express their love to us. Like how we receive love. We talked about, giving love in a new way, but being receptive to the way the love comes to us and learning more ways that actually, what I've learned over the years is Heavenly Father knows our heart better than we do all the time, but most of the time, and that actually we find more joy if we're open and receptive to learn new ways to give and receive love that make us even happier. And I just kind of see that I've just been thinking about that. We talked about, giving love in certain ways, but actually being open and receptive to receiving love in new ways and how opening and freeing that can be.
How does that, I'm not quite following how it fits, how you got that from the parable. I like what you're saying.
I guess I got it from the conversation we were having about giving love and like D4 having ways to express his love in certain ways, like the woodworking. He really wanted to express his love with the woodworking. And it got me thinking about expressing our love in new ways, but also being open to receiving love in new ways. Different than like the love languages. Like this is how I receive love, but being open to receive love as it comes in new ways. Like the plastic toys. The plastic toys were different than what he saw there, but the girls really were able to receive that, and he was open to that. I don't know. I just see. I'm starting to. Maybe I'm having trouble formulating. But I'm seeing there's a connection of being receptive to how the love comes in our life.
I think what I'm getting, but I'm not sure, is when somebody has a way they express love, like through service, or there's certain ways that we all tend to express love more than other ways. We each have a way we tend to give love. Some give gifts, for example. Some will do things for other people. We have sort of a way that we tend to express love. If we're on the other end of that, it'd be nice if we can be supple. I'm not sure if that's what you're saying. Even if that's not the way we normally cared, we're not say we don't like a lot of gifts, physical gifts given to us, but maybe we can learn to accept that that's the way that person likes to share their love with us, and maybe receive more of the love than we would normally if little gifts are not our thing. They're more of a nuisance. But if we know that person, and there's somebody on the screen that does it all the time, frankly, it's just not our thing, but we know that's the way she's expressing love to Lynn and I, and we actually receive the love because we've learned to accept that's how she expresses love. So it's enriched our life that we receive love, and I guess it makes her happy that we can receive the love in the way she likes to give it. Although that's not our normal way that Lynn and I receive love. Is that kind of what you're saying?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. And also, if we're rigid in the way we think God's love should show up in our life, we're only going to be able to receive what we think if it fits in that box. But if we're open to new ways that God can express his love to us, then that gives, God's got all this love for us, and it opens things up where we can receive more of his love.
Okay. Well, now I really get what you're saying. We spent 30 some years. I've been showing you all these almost infinite ways. Every day you can see God express his love to each of you. You recognize it every day, all day long. But years ago, you only recognized it occasionally when it came in a certain way. That's all through our Spiritual Keys book. And we've got 5 books, a series, Testimonies of God's Love, which is what you're talking about. Now I'm really on board with you, kind of beyond the parables here. I think we've all learned over the years, there's almost infinite ways now we recognize God expressing love to us. And that's so much more abundant life for us. Before, maybe if it was only one way, maybe prayer was answered the way we wanted it. But the other 100 ways God expressed his love throughout the day or the week, we never recognized. So I'm definitely on board with what you're saying now, but you kind of jumped from the parable to what we've been doing for the last 30 some years. So,
yeah.
Thank you. Oh, okay, Mark. Irv looks like he's excited to share something. Hi, Irv. Yeah, you kind of jumped clear to a whole nother level.
I'm chuckling because I randomly turned to page 118. In the middle of the page, it says the friends and family had expressed their love and well wishes to our new addition in their own way.
Yeah.
In a way they thought would make our soon-to-be child happy, and they were right. So the author saw that too. Yeah.
I see that ties in with Mark.
Yeah.
That Dale yielded the way he wanted to express love initially, at least, was through making putting the love in the handmade wooden toys. But he yielded to how others expressed love to his daughters through colorful plastic toys. That fits nicely with what Mark said. Thank you.
Yeah.
I think in general, the more ways we can learn to accept love, even if it's not our base way that we accept love, and more ways we learn to give love, the better. I think that's a good thing. And I think we've all grown. I think a lot of our teachers the last 30 some years at the retreat center, you all told me you had love in a little box. You love somebody only if they loved you back, or you love somebody only if they did certain things for you. And now you love not like God loves, completely unconditionally, but more like God loves. You love people, you know they're a child of God, and you love them even if there's certain things you don't care about them. You still pray for them, you wish them well. So this is a big topic. That's a whole nother topic. To learn to give love more broadly and to receive love more broadly that definitely creates an abundant life. And that's been a big part of what the retreat center's done for over 30 years. And I see pieces of that in this parable. So thank you, Mark. I think it's sinking in a little bit now, a little bit better between what you said and what Irv said. I think we'll take a break if you don't mind. We okay with that? And we'll have a little more time for the next one. There's so much in these parables. And every time I take a break, I'll probably think of something we could have talked about. I think we got a lot out of it. Thanks for reading it, Dell. We'll come back in about 15 and we'll get into the rim. Another beautiful parable. Thank you. See you in a few minutes. Dell, would you like to read this for us?
Yep, absolutely. All right, here we go. The rim. It's interesting how we all have pictures in our minds of things we've never seen or experienced for ourselves. The Grand Canyon is a wonderful example of this. When I was growing up, I had a pretty solid image of what it was to know the Grand Canyon, even though I had never been there physically. This picture was built over the years through some incredible photography I had seen, amazing videos and documentaries, as well as speaking with others who had been there and shared their experiences with me. I guess I never really questioned this image I had unconsciously compiled through these secondhand experiences. They had just naturally built over the years, one by one, into a picture within me of what the Grand Canyon was, of what it was like to be familiar with it, to actually know it, to have actually experienced it for myself. I'm not saying I deluded myself into thinking I'd actually been there for a visit. That would be cause for concern. Rather, I had painted a picture in my head of knowing what it must be like had I actually visited the Grand Canyon. Flash forward to the day years later when, during a cross-country road trip, I walked out onto the rim and beheld it for myself for the first time. All the temporary pictures I had in my mind are placeholders, so to say, of what actually was the experience of standing on the rim of the Grand Canyon, gazing out across its seemingly endless vastness crumbled. With it came the realization I've been carrying a black and white placeholder of sorts of the reality of the canyon, of the experience, one I had compiled through others' memories, snapshots, experiences, and hearsay. This one was actually real. It was mine, and there was no compare. Perhaps the story served as motivation for me to one day go see it in person, but they ultimately paled in comparison to experiencing it for myself. This realization was so dramatic and tangible. I remember standing there on the rim in awe, literally shaking my head slowly side to side as the picture I had been carrying for so long shattered. It had unknowingly to me been so lacking and was now completely upgraded with a much higher level of truth and reality. It had gone from two-dimensional to beyond three-dimensional. I was in it. It was alive. This made me wonder, where else in life am I only seeing skin deep, if even that? Where else am I only seeing the summarized version I have created of something versus actually experiencing the true reality of it for myself? Where else do I think I already understand something, but really have no idea to the fullness, depth, and richness of it? Where else could my life be more? Where else could I experience higher levels of truth? I remember that day at the Grand Canyon trying to take some photos so I could share with others what I had experienced, but realized it was futile. Fragments of its vast beauty could be captured on film or video to a certain degree, but not the experience of it. I would not be able to truly share the experience through a photo. I could only use it to inspire someone to make the journey. Those who wanted to know it for themselves would have to make the journey and see it for themselves and experience it for themselves and breathe it in for themselves and be encompassed by it for themselves and bathe in the wonder of it for themselves. All I could do was encourage them to make the journey by sharing how much of a blessing it was for me to make the trip. No one can go to the rim for you. They can tell you about it. They can tell you how glorious it is. They can encourage you. They can inspire you with their stories, but we must each ultimately see it for ourselves to truly know it and be blessed by the experience. And even those who have been to the rim do not see and experience it exactly the same. Everyone who goes there brings back something different. We're each individual spiritual beings created out of love, with love by our Heavenly Father. We have had lifetimes of experience that have helped, that have helped in giving us our unique view of things. We all see things a little bit differently, and that's a good thing. God loves our uniqueness, and He loves when one of His children makes it to a place where they have a higher view. It makes His heart smile to see one of His children inspired with awe and wonder and love from the rim, wanting nothing more than to share the view with his other children.
Beautiful, Dell. Thanks for writing it, and thanks for reading it. There's so much, this one really resonates with me. There's so much here. I guess we'll open it up and see where we go. Diane. Morning, Diane.
Good morning. Good
And
morning.
then I think James had his hand up.
The sandbox was such a perfect segue to this, where Dell talked about, you know, he had this image in his mind of what the toys should be like for his children and how all that changed. And in the rim, similarly, he had this image in his mind of what it would be like. But what I'm really seeing in this is that he's talking about experiencing God's love. People who aren't able to recognize it, they might paint a picture in their head of what God's love looks like. And once you really experience it, for each person, it's different, it's glorious. And there's so many different ways that God shows His love, and there's so many ways to experience it, but we have to do it for ourselves, because that black and white photo, you know, it just doesn't compare. And to me, it just all through this, there's so much about experiencing God's love, and what a blessing it is to be able to experience, to know it. And you can't really tell somebody about it and have them get the full experience. They have to experience it for themselves. And
how do you get this parable? I like what you're saying, but how do you go from this parable where Dell used the Grand Canyon as an example of experiencing versus reading about or hearing about to God's love? How did you make that connection?
it just jumped out at me, because I just see how, you know, like we can tell somebody God loves you, but but how did I get there? I don't, it just jumped into my heart that experiencing the Grand Canyon and the rim is so similar to trying to explain God's love to someone.
Okay. Yeah, I think I see what you're saying. I can see that now. I think of reading the Bible, this holy word of God, and the experiences people had back when the Bible was written. It's kind of like having a picture of the Grand Canyon. It's awesome. But we've learned over the years where we've been blessed to experience God's love, not just through reading stories when other people experienced it. That's great. But I see how that connects with what you're talking about in the rim. In the Bible, there's all these amazing experiences of other people, and it's wonderful, and maybe inspire us to try to have our own experiences to draw nigh. But you've all had on the screen here many experiences with God's love, similar or more than some of the Bible experiences, and it's different than reading about somebody else's experience. So I think I see where you come to that. But the Bible can inspire. And Dell's trip, even when he wanted to give somebody an experience by taking a picture, he knew it was futile or whatever. They had to do it for themselves. So, okay. All right. Thank you. James?
all these parables are just beautiful, but this is one of my favorites. And I recall when D4 read this for the first time, there was a sentence in here that grabbed me and stirred me. And over the 15-minute break between the Sandbox and this one, I knew there was that sense, where is it? And it's at the top of 123, where he turns to the reader and says, no one can go to the rim for you, James. They can tell you about it. They can tell you how glorious it is. They can encourage you. So it's a turn to the reader to, it's possible. It's possible. Those stories of old you heard as a child, you can experience. And no one can go to the rim for you. It's just, I remember when he read that for the first time, he repeated that sentence. And it never fails. I searched it and there it is. It's just beautiful. Thank you.
Thanks, James. That reminds me, a little off topic here, but Lynn and I have watched a couple episodes. I think it Going Wild with Bear Gillis, something like that. And we just saw one, and we can watch them rappel and go down rivers and swim in cold water. And it's really fun to watch, but it doesn't change us. Where we see these people he takes out, usually celebrities. We saw this rock guy from somewhere. I'm not familiar with him. It was just what you could see, it changed him. So we could watch it on TV and it was really exciting, but it didn't really change us. It kind of inspired us. The scenery, I think it was in Norway was beautiful. And I could kind of get a feeling when they're repelling off the rock, but you could see the experience change the people Bear took out. They would open up, they'd share things that they wouldn't normally share. It's almost like they were healed and rejuvenated. And it was only a one-day experience. We just saw one, is what you reminded me of, James. I enjoyed the show, but the experience the person had that I was watching, it was totally different for them. And it went deeper than me just sitting watching. So the Bible can inspire us to seek, to draw nigh to God. Other people's experience at Grand Canyon or life in general, or taking a hike or whatever, might inspire them, but they have to do it themselves. The experience is different than just watching. A huge difference. I've often said, I think I learn better through experience. I don't mind a discourse and stuff, but actually experiencing something, I think it changes us. That's the root of this whole parable, I think. Anybody
Yeah.
else? Thanks, James. Yeah, Lawrence?
Yeah, so on this topic of experiencing things for ourselves, we were just talking about how the Bible is inspiring and it has these inspiring stories of, spiritual experiences but it doesn't always leave a person knowing like what to do. And I'm thinking about the gift of the spiritual keys, the book, the spiritual keys that you've given us, and how the spiritual keys actually is like a manual that gives you specific exercises that allow you to experience those things for yourself. And I'm thinking about some of even just the early days, first coming onto your property at Guidance for a Better Life, and you would tell us that you want to learn through experience. It was, and we would have experiences. And I'm thinking a lot of the things in the spiritual keys are like some of those early exercises we did, that help us actually, and that's what has made the change, for me, to be able to actually have the experiences.
You just gave me a real gift, but we're changing the cover, the back cover and the first page of the keys, tweaking it slightly. And you just gave me a real gift. I said in the Sandbox, I put up the spiritual keys, and it shows you how to do what's in the Bible. The Bible tells us how God and Jesus would like us to live, but sometimes it doesn't tell us how to actually do it. So the spiritual keys the Father gave me, I wrote, tell us how to actually do it. But I missed something really important. And you just brought it to us, and I might rewrite what we're going to put on the book. We're going to tweak it. It shows you how to experience the things in the Bible. I've been thinking the Keys book, and it's true, show us how to do what's in the Bible, how to live more righteously, how to follow the Holy Spirit, how to understand dreams, like Angel Lord came in a dream, that type of stuff. But I missed a key ingredient. And thank you for that. And I might rewrite it. It shows us the keys. If you live the keys and integrate them into your life, you start experiencing some of the things the Father would like us to experience. How to treat people, how to think about yourselves, for example, like the last parable, how to have good, positive thoughts and attitudes in life, like we got in the Sandbox. We talked about. So thank you for that. I missed the word experience. So I'm going to revisit what we're writing. Thank you. Very cool.
Thank you.
So I kind of digressed there, but that's very helpful. Thank you, Lawrence. Anybody else? Thorin?
Thank you, Prophet. Diane and I took a trip across country to the Grand Canyon, and we went there in the winter. It was a little different because I had gone there before too. But in the winter, we were sitting there on the rim, and the snow was falling. And it was so different because I saw the depth. Like, it was the scale of the snow, watching the snow go down. I didn't fully take in, I guess, the depth. And it goes back to that what he says, what D4 says on page 122, the fullness, the depth, and the richness of it, and the wonder, bathing in that wonder. And it just reminds me that there's always more. With all the spiritual experience you've given us over the years, it's a never-ending gift. There's always a way to go deeper, the bold truth, see it differently, and it can just constantly give the love over the years.
Yeah, I like what you're saying. It goes deeper. You're still at the rim of the Grand Canyon, but it was a different experience. It built on the first. And I'm thinking when we up at Guidance for Better Life experience God expressing his love to us, it's amazing. But a month or two later, we have an experience where he expresses it. It may go deeper. The first part might be accepted more, but it might be seen slightly different, like in the winter versus summer. That's really nice. Thank you. So makes me want to experience God's love every day in different ways, to go deeper and accept it more fully, but also to see it in a broader sense. Thank you. Very nice. Anybody else? Great. Hi. Just before we go on, we'll get to Rebecca, then Gary. How many have actually been at the Grand Canyon? Raise your hands. Let me look around. About a third of you. So yeah, and I was there at my 12th. I've been there several times, but I had my 12th birthday camping out with snow on the ground there when I was 12 years old. So this really relates. Rebecca, hi.
Good morning. As D4 was reading the first full paragraph on page 121 and in the first paragraph on 122, I know he's talking about the Grand Canyon, but I heard him talking about your love, Prophet, and God's love for us, the vastness of it, the so much more. We can have ideas and feelings, but it's so greater. And in the Keys book, I'm seeing spiritual growth. I'm seeing surrender. I'm seeing the master key, the relationship that we have built with you, the vastness of it, the love and the care and everything that you have brought to us and shown us from when we first started in our humble beginnings to where we've grown now. And there's always more. We're going to continue to grow. And it was just, it's so humbling to know that there is so much more in our relationship with you and God and how personal it is. Thank you.
Yeah, I underlined that same area. I got something in a totally different direction. But when I just looked at it, thanks to you, Rebecca, seemingly endless vastness. And I think about our experience with the Heavenly Father, Jesus, and the divine in general. It's like the Grand Canyon. It's standing at the rim in a little 6-foot body, or I'm bragging now, maybe 5'11" if I'm lucky, body, looking at the vastness of the canyon. I see the parable there, or the metaphor for the vastness of the potential relationship with the divine.
Yeah.
You can have all three, the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. You don't have to limit yourself. You can have the whole thing, the vastness. Thank you for that.
You're welcome.
I'll come back to mine because it's so small compared to what you share, but on the same thing you shared. Well, I'll share it now because I may not get back to it. And this is going in an opposite direction. But let me read that again, and I'll tell you, I got something different, maybe help us in life, daily life. All the temporary pictures, this is page 121 in the top paragraph there. All the temporary pictures I had in my mind, or placeholders, so to say, of what actually was the experience of standing on the rim of the Grand Canyon, gazing out across it seemingly in this vastness crumbled. I got something totally different. Oh, I love what Rebecca said. I think of the placeholders. I like that term. There's a politician in our country right now that is greatly loved and revered, and others think the opposite of him. But they haven't had experience with him, very few of them. And I've watched over the last year or two where people get a placeholder and they start placing either good or start placing this guy's a terrible person, just a horrible, and all these negative things people say. Yet I've seen some examples where people actually meet him, like going to the Grand Canyon. They've got a placeholder, he's a rotten person, or maybe someone in your life you think from you heard rumors about is not a nice person. But then you meet them if you're open and receptive, and you find out the placeholder was not really very accurate. That there's a vastly different view of a person or this politician or people in general when you get to know them. If you're open enough to be receptive to what's really there and give up the placeholder. I hope this is making sense. So you hear rumors about somebody and you think they're kind of a schmuck or a knucklehead, and that's a placeholder. You file it away. If you're receptive enough, back to our last parable, supple, I think Irv started with supple. If you're supple and you want the truth, you don't want to lock rigidly into your placeholder of your view of a person. I wonder how this could help our relations with people. We kind of think they're not very cool. We don't want to be around them. Then somehow we meet them. If you can be supple and really try to experience the actual person, back to experience the actual person, and maybe take the placeholder and put it aside for a moment, you might see them in a totally different light. And I see that because there's so many hard feelings about how people vote, or are on this side of politics or that. I wonder if these are placeholders that if you'd actually meet people you think are terrible, or certain people enforcing our laws right now that are spit on, and you have this placeholder how bad they are. If you actually met one and you're open enough to actually have the experience not make the experience, but let the experience be what it is with that person, you might find they're good, decent people. You have something to connect with. So right now, with all the polarization in our country, I like what you brought to us, Rebecca, but I wonder if our placeholders is what's causing so much of that we get so attached to hanging on to what we think we know about a person, that if we actually meet him, this one particular politician at a very high level, I've seen several celebrities who didn't have a good opinion of him. When they actually met him, they actually kind of liked him. But our placeholders, anyway, I hope there's something there that will bless somebody. But when you have an actual experience, maybe your placeholder was right. Maybe they're worse than you thought. And that's okay if it's from a true experience. That's okay if you want the truth. But just maybe the placeholder was not true. So I hope that helps somebody. Maybe we get along a little better. Okay, anybody else? I'll be quiet for a minute, kind of off track. Hey, Gary.
For me, this parable was about the journey home to God. I know, like, the Bible has shares experiences, our testimonies share experiences, and they're beautiful. But the actual experience of kneeling before God at His throne, you can't explain it, you can't share it, you can't help someone else know what it is, because it's different than you can even, the mind will never get it. But we inspire people with our testimonies, and we write them hoping somebody will take that journey, and because the actual experience is beyond anything that we could actually put into words. It's inspiration, but it's not the experience. And I'm thinking, even for us day to day, every experience of God's love is it changes us. But somebody telling you God loves you doesn't necessarily change you, but the experience does. So I wanted to share that.
Yeah. Getting back to where this rim, this parable, I really see what Dale's talking about is experiencing God and God's love and those type things. You have to experience it. You can read about it, you be inspired about it. I want to read the last sentence in this parable on page 123. It makes his heart smile to see one of his children, and he's talking about God, which is where you're taking us, Gary. It makes his heart smile to see one of his children inspired with awe and wonder and love from the rim, or from God. And all the rim represents a parable of God's love, the relationship with the Father and Son, and all we've been blessed with, wanting nothing more than to share the view with his other children. I know all of us on screen have been so blessed with experiencing the love of God and the teachings of the Bible through actual experience. We have such a desire to share, but we also know it's very difficult. It's almost impossible to share our experiences. We can inspire and hope. So how have we done that? We have about 20 books out now, and I think if not all our books, most of them have testimonies where you share your experiences, what you can share, knowing it's like a placeholder. It's not their experience, but hopefully it will inspire them to have their own experience. And our books also offer tools how they can have their own experiences. Back to what Lauren said, the Spiritual Keys book is full of tools to have experiences, for people to have experiences for themselves. So based on what Gary said, we'd like to inspire people. We want them to have the blessings we've been so fortunate to receive. But there's a catch. We almost can't give them it, but we can write testimonies. We can give them the tools, that different ways to tune into the Holy Spirit, how to draw nigh to God, and then just hope and pray they will have someday their own experience. that's the biggest thing I get out of the rim. That's really, besides the people, placeholders and all that, how you judge people maybe wrongly. I think when I read the rim the first time and this time and other times, it goes back to the core for me is we want people to experience the things of heaven that we've experienced that we cannot give them directly, but we can inspire them, we can encourage them, we can suggest it's worth the effort to use the tools we share, the Hugh love song to God that raises you up, tunes you into the Holy Spirit, to accept help from the master key and all that, and just cross our fingers. We hope they have an experience. It can be very frustrating. I wonder if Dell in some ways was frustrated at the rim, thinking of friends back here in Virginia. He's out west in Arizona, thinking of his friends. He'd love them to have that experience, but you can't give them the experience. You can only inspire, you can encourage, you can maybe give them a plane ticket or whatever, but you can't give the experience. Is that what we're getting? I don't know if we can give it. Now, the master key can, but a lot of people don't accept the help from the master key. Anyway, you got me going, Gary. But that was the biggest thing when the last year when I've read the rim. I think it's a metaphor for going to the rim, to the very abode of God and being in God's presence directly. We can share it to a point, but it only becomes a placeholder, but people have to experience it for themselves. So anyway, let me wind down. And Dell, let's go back to the author. Maybe we got this totally wrong.
No, you got it. Just one more thing about the inspiring somebody to make that journey themselves. I think one of the best ways we can do that is just being a point of light. When somebody sees us in our daily walk, out doing our thing, and they're like, man, you got your stuff together and you seem, in balance and happy. And like, we talk about this all the time. The best way we can serve is just to go out there and do our thing and inspire people. And they, when they come to us and say, how are you, what I'm saying? Like, I just stumbling here, but, why are you so happy, or how are you living such a good life? And then we can share that, we want to get people to the rim and to inspire them by walking it. I don't know if I made that clear or not, but
that's beautiful. Besides
clear in
our
my
written
head, but maybe it didn't come out right.
I thought it was beautiful, Dell. We write written testimonies, but maybe even more potent and more inspiring is how we live our life. The balance we live, the abundance we live, and how, like in the last parable, positive thoughts and attitudes when little pieces of plastic popped out of the sand after a rainy day. And if somebody sees that in us, we hope they see it, then we can hand them a book or suggest certain tools, how they can tune in, but we can't do it for them. You also have a lot of help. God always has help here in a form we're familiar with, the master key, but a lot of people are not yet ready to accept the help. So we've all received a lot of help to get where we're at, and I don't think we can do it alone. So we can wish them well, we can inspire them through written word, and I think Dell said through living, being a living testimony. On our path, this path of love and our close relationship with the Heavenly Father and Jesus and the Comforter, I think one of the most potentially, if we let it get to us, frustrating parts of it is we so desire others to experience what we experience and know for themselves how much God loves them and know for themselves that it's a lie that God would ever abandon us. It's all through the Bible. God will never abandon us. He might be upset for a day. He'll hold us accountable. But that frees us to love God with all our heart, mind, and soul. Where we're afraid if we annoy God and we go to a bad place forever, we cannot open up fully to love him. So we would like others to have what we have because we care about them. They're our siblings. All God's children, we're all siblings. So it can be very frustrating wanting something for somebody so bad and know it would bless them so much, but knowing we can't give them the experience. We can inspire and motivate, give them the tools, lead them to how they get help, but we can't give them the actual experience. How many find it because you want to bless, you want others to have what we have so bad that it can be frustrating. You can only do so much for them. That's part of my life. So when somebody's interested, and they see something in how you live your life, and they want to know how you do it, and they're receptive, boy, that's a great day when you get to share with somebody and root for them and hope they'll make the effort to get what we found. We can pray for them, we can root for them, we can encourage. But back to this whole thing of the rim, it's the experience that's the prize. The actual experience, all the placeholders of the rim of the Grand Canyon, or all the things in the Bible that are placeholders, what it would be like to be an apostle, or be close to Jesus, or hear him talk, or break bread with him. They're placeholders. But the experience takes it, it's a whole different level to have the experience. Like watching this last guy on this rapper guy, seemed a little wild, but he's a real beautiful soul. And it came out in the experience with Bear Gillis out in the wilderness. I had a nice time watching it on the sofa, but it didn't change me, but it changed him. The experience is what changed him. And I think over the years, all the experiences we've had is what's changed us in a positive way. So this is a really potent topic, experience. And that could be in anything. I'm thinking of Lawrence earlier. This is kind of funny. You're a professional musician, plus a college professor. When you used to see people perform on stage, doing their thing, playing music, I don't know if this will fit or we'll edit it out. You probably had a certain experience. Is it different when you're on stage performing?
Oh, absolutely.
Is it totally different when you're the one actually up there doing it?
It's definitely different doing it. And yeah, results can vary from what the placeholder is. But I'm also thinking of the analogy of seeing other people do it is inspiring and makes you want to do it.
Cool. And it might be we can get it down to earthly things, sort of. Everything's spiritual to this group. Maybe change the lifestyle, change the living. You want to move to a different environment, but you're nervous about it. And maybe somebody inspire you, or maybe take a different job, even though it's a little scary, but maybe it'd be a growth opportunity. You have a passion for a different type of career. Maybe we could just, maybe if you do it and you make a change when it's a little scary, maybe that'll inspire somebody else. It might not be quite as safe, but maybe in the long run, they'll experience life and what they need to learn by taking a chance on a different career. Something maybe doesn't seem logical to friends and family or to your accountant, but something that's in your heart. Any other examples? Let's get some other examples that might help our audience where experience in life. Anything? Can you start with something, Lawrence, from your experience watching musicians to where you became one? What did Dell say? The placeholder? What were some of the things you thought it would be like to be on stage? How cool and how popular, maybe, I'm just guessing, I'm not on stage in that way. And then you got up there, you realized you're scared to death and pretty scary. I
Yeah,
think
that's a good
the
example.
placeholder didn't fit what you thought it'd be. It was actually a little bit more uncomfortable than you thought.
Yeah, there was some discomfort with it, and there's definitely ups and downs. Like, maybe certain performances are really satisfying, and other ones are really leave you sort of feeling empty and like, there's got to be something more than this. So, it doesn't always fit the picture that you have. I think a lot of people feel that way when they see somebody performing. They go, "Oh, that must be cool." And the reality of it is, it's got its stresses and its strains, and it's like a roller coaster, like a lot of things.
Also, like Thorin said, he went to the Grand Canyon at a different season of the year, and it was different. Watching the snow go all the way down in there, maybe realize the depth more. As you performed over many, many years, are your experiences different or are they the same?
Oh, different. Yeah. Yeah, different, and kind of, I guess maybe I have a different criteria as far as like even performance I would want to do or not want to do. Like probably when I first started, it was like I would just take anything. And now I feel like there are certain things that I kind of know from experience that there's certain performances I don't want to do because they're not going to really be satisfying in a lot of ways. And so you maybe I've become more discerning, I guess, over time, which only experience can do.
Yeah. Placeholders, I don't know if placeholders fit with discerning. Placeholders, I don't know how true they are and how much we can rely on a placeholder. But actual experience, I would think, would be truth. And then you can make decisions based on that truth once you understand it.
Yeah.
Anne, hi, Anne, right above you, Lawrence. Anne's got her hand out. Thank you, Lawrence.
Thank you.
I hope this fits. I'm just thinking about you as when I first met you 30 years or so ago. I didn't know that I observed you being grateful all the time. I observed you having peace in your heart, being consistent, caring, all these amazing qualities that kind of like speak to God's love. But I hadn't really seen that before in my life so clearly, or even seen it or experienced it. And over the years, through the teachings, through this process, this beautiful process of trying them on, and practicing gratitude, or learning how to pray and speak to God. All these things over time built and became part of who I am. And so we're talking about like going to the rim, like that's like the ultimate, like what is that? So I think it's so important to let people listening know that it's just such a process, and it's so doable when you work with the master key, when you work with prophet and you follow the keys. So it's like so doable, and I couldn't imagine it was. And I think there are a lot of people out there who really want to know God's love, and like, how do I get there? And it is so doable. And I was so clueless, but I knew in my heart I wanted it. So I'm just like, I hope that fits.
Thank you, Anne. You remind me what Dell shared. In a sense, you're saying I was a testimony of certain qualities that you liked. Balance, my gratitude for things, some of the things you said. It's awkward for me to repeat them. But like Dell said, how we live our life might inspire somebody to come to us. How can you stay so balanced? How do you keep so much peace in a stressful situation? How do you trust God when you're going through such a tough time? We can't give them the experience, but it might inspire them to work towards those qualities. And the best, maybe we can show them how the tools to start getting them. It sounds like you're saying what Dell said earlier. The way I live my life, there was something you liked about it. I'm going to ask you a question. I think you've got a lot of those things now that you weren't familiar with then, but did you get them by watching me mostly, or through over time having your own experiences? actually feeling gratitude for the blessings in your life, not just seeing me have gratitude, but when you started having gratitude. Did you get those qualities that you wanted that maybe I inspired you towards, mostly through experience?
Yes, absolutely. And you showed us how to do that. I mean, simply by keeping a gratitude journal and demonstrating gratitude all day long through the seemingly little things in life that I was oblivious to, but eventually I could see, and it gave me such hope.
So some of the ways I live my life, it sounds like I was a placeholder, but it didn't make a huge difference to you until you started experiencing it for yourself. But you might not have even tried to go in that direction if you hadn't seen it was possible and something that you tended to like and want it for yourself. This whole thing about the rim breaks down to the one giant word, I think. And if I'm off, let me know. It starts with an E. Experience. That's like the Powerball or something. Placeholders, reading books, all these things are wonderful and they get you towards something, but the experience, it seems, what changes. Is that how we're taking this? The actual experience. So Thorne stands up. I think
Yes.
Jorge.
Yeah, something that is just coming to me as a common experience, I think maybe people can relate to would be driving. You know, I remember driving in the passenger seat, watching my dad or my mom drive the vehicle, and I was like, oh, that's going to be easy to do. I can do that. And then you get behind the wheel and it's like, whoa, you know, there's all these things you're learning and everything. And then after a while, it's like you keep experiencing that, and then you experience the joy and the freedom and the love when you're riding down the road. But you can't give that experience, you know. They might share or feel your joy and excitement and your peace and the way you walk the walk and talk the talk. But until they get behind the wheel.
Thank you. I used to use an example over the years. I don't remember when, but you reminded me of it. You can watch baseball, be a baseball fan, and watch batters up there scratching and spitting and swinging their bat and scratching certain parts of themselves and, you know, hitting the base and all that. And it's not the same as you getting up there and swinging a bat. You can watch somebody swinging a baseball bat all day and it might inspire you, but it's different when you get up and swing a bat. I wonder if one of the things that this video, if we put it on YouTube, might do. Let's say somebody's watched somebody do a zip line and they think that's really cool. They sit in their house and for years they thought that's cool. They see it every once in a while, somebody doing a zip line. Maybe today, this rim, we can encourage, find a place, get online, search. There's probably a zip line within a couple hours of your house. Go do a zip line. We took Lynn and I took our granddaughter, one of our granddaughters on a zip line. I'd seen it for years. I thought it was pretty cool, but actually doing it was different. It was better. Or you see somebody snow skiing or driving where you can go rent a race car. I went to Charlotte, North Carolina, where you rent actual race cars. I got up over 150 miles an hour. They put you in the suit and the helmet. They limit the car so you can't go too fast, but actually get out and do stuff. You see people hiking like with Bear Gillis. Maybe don't go quite so wild. But just go on a day hike. Go on a day hike somewhere. Get out, do something. Go camping. That's what I'm kind of getting out of this. Maybe bring it down to an earthly level. Is maybe for all and some of you on screen, there's something you've always kind of thought was cool. I don't know. Can you drive these big wheel things that crush cars, monster trucks? I think there's probably a place. I think I saw a line where they'll show you, and you sign a lot of waivers probably for insurance, and they'll give you the keys to these big wheels, and you go drive around a bunch of cars out in their field. What I'm thinking is maybe get out and experience stuff. Might be a thing. You want to start a business, you dream about becoming wealthy or creating a product. It's one thing to dream about it, but maybe get out and start it. What the heck? Anything else here? Jorge, did you have
You're ultimately
something?
talking about following your heart.
Yeah. All
Just
the way
do
through
it.
this parable book, almost every parable, Dell talks about wanting to follow his heart. He says he likes to live with his heart smiling. We say an open heart. And life's so different when you have your heart smile. Get out and do some things. One on the screen here, I won't point out her name, just took up weightlifting. One of the ladies on the screen here, something you thought about and you're doing and actually experiencing it. Apparently, you're really enjoying it. It's good for the health as we get older, resistant training, but get out and do it. And you meet people in the gym, maybe get out and do stuff, live life. Maybe turn off some of the social media a little bit, throttle it back, a little less TV, a little less eating on the sofa, and get out and go for a walk. Maybe that might be a start. Just go out and go for a walk. Anything else? Lorraine, our producer, did you have something?
Yes. What I was thinking when we talk about having the experience is that the experience for me is different from someone else doing the same activity. And it's that personalized experience. And where I'm kind of trying to go with this is with Heavenly Father, or if we're inspiring other people through our testimony, or asking or trying to inspire others through our experiences, trusting that when they have their experience, it's going to be a personal experience tailor-made for them. And so the neat thing about having the experience is that it's going to be very, very similar. So
Thank you. I did see Lisa's hand. Did you have more in the rim, Lisa?
No, that's okay. Actually, Lorraine, what I was drawn to saying is there was something really important when I look back over my life in this parable about on the last paragraph where D4 brings up that everyone who goes there brings back something different, and that's a good thing. Because when I think about some of the cautions that you talked about with placeholders or this two-dimensional knowledge based on other people and other people's opinions or frame of reference. And even in good things, like the testimonies were so beautiful, but I limited myself wanting my experiences to be like theirs. And the freedom that D4 is bringing up here is that everybody's different. And when you go with that flexibility or being supple, that the experience will be uniquely mine, it's actually more beautiful than you could imagine, having it not be like somebody else's. That's the only thing I wanted to bring up.
Actually, you bring up a beautiful point. If Dell and Kate, I think, were on the trip with the girls, let's say Dell and his wife Kate stand on the rim. They could both replace the placeholders for the experience, but I think both would be different. Some overlap, but why the difference? You mentioned something about difference. I don't recall the exact word. I think God gives us probably the exact experience we each need. So Kate probably, they had a lot of overlap, but she probably got something Dell didn't get that was right for her. And Dell got something that she didn't get that maybe was perfect for her. And each time we go in the heavens and travel as soul and meet the Father or Jesus or have an experience with God's love, I don't think it's just different because we're different and unique, but I think it's also different. God's got his hand in it to where we each get what we need a little bit more, and the other person will get what they need. So I hadn't seen that till you brought that up. I think that's a really good point. So thank you for that. Yeah, Jorge, there is more here.
Yes, and experiencing, what we need in the moment. You're just mentioning. I just felt like I had to share that, boundaries, for example, is something that all of a sudden came super clear in my life that I have to work on. And I've read about boundaries, I've studied, different, the different keys and the teachings, but it's another thing when you have to apply it in your personal life, like all of a sudden it becomes real. And let me tell you, like, it's been one of the hardest things in, the past few months, but man, like I know a little clearer now the importance of boundaries and how, why they're important. And I've had to like scramble to use some of the tools, and I realized that, healing every day has given me enough strength to go through this. So it's like, wow. It's like you can have a moment in your life when all of a sudden one specific key or something becomes very important. And that's experience. I just wanted to share that because it's real. And I can see how the benefits or the love comes in, and all of a sudden it's like, wow, I had no idea. So thank you for your teachings, and it's amazing.
That kind of adds to what I got with Lisa's share. You now have an experience of putting boundaries in your life with certain people or the job or wherever it is, or neighbors or whatever. But you just got the nudge now, like a strong feeling it's time now. That kind of goes to what I was suggesting when Lisa shared. Maybe you didn't need it before, but then the divine knew it's time in your life. You need to experience boundaries, maybe save you from some grief or problems, and you got the nudge. So even the timing of deciding to set boundaries, I think you were guided. And I see that as a gift of love. A lot would think it's just a coincidence. It's just random. I think we, over the years, see that. I don't know how do you believe that was a gift of love from the divine to get your attention? Now's the time to really consider some boundaries in your life.
Absolutely. And I don't know how or why, but I know now is the timing, and I went with it, and I feel internally like reinforced, and I trust it.
Now, we also know you don't have to figure it out by yourself. You also can pray, and you have a relationship with the divine, all three aspects, Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. Ask what type of boundaries? Physical time with each other, or time on phone, time online, or how much you actually around somebody physically, or some boundaries at work, I don't know, or with a neighbor. You don't have to figure it out by yourself. The Holy Spirit's guiding you. There's something now is important for boundaries, but you don't have to do it alone. You can keep asking, well, what area, what part of my life? Is it my neighbor? Is it something at work? Is it with a close friend, a buddy, an old friend? Where my finances, how I spend my time? You're not alone. You get help with the same part of the divine that's helped you all these years grow and accept more of God's love. So that reinforces what I think I got from Lisa when I saw in my mind Dell going to the rim with his girls, but I'm thinking his wife, beautiful wife, Kate, they're standing there. They had a lot of overlap, but I believe the divine would give Kate a little different view that would help her in some way, and Dell a little different view that would be right for him. I'm really glad we added this extra part, and we don't have to do this alone. Thank you, Jorge. Very nice.
I could see like every part profit come in, and I felt guided, and I felt, secure, which is something, how do you tell somebody you can trust, you're secure? You can't. You just have to experience the hand of the divine kind of stepping in here and there and the next thing.
Maybe our trust in the divine guidance will inspire somebody to seek it for themselves. I just got a little sidebar, maybe humorous. If you watch people skydive, I've jumped out of a plane, even not when I was a pilot, a fighter pilot in the Navy, but at the Naval Academy, 5 jumps, static line, not real fancy. But if you've watched people skydive, you think that'd be cool. And I keep saying, go out and experience stuff like zip lines or snow skiing or whatever. Go drive a race car or a bumper car if you want to start small, in like a circus or something. Maybe have some discernment. Maybe check it with the divine. Maybe that's not the experience you want to have. Maybe that's one you just keep a placeholder, what it's like to jump out of a plane. But maybe you don't want to do that. So you might want to get some input on that one. Or maybe not that particular training center. Maybe go to a different one that takes better care of their parachutes or something. So anyway, so thanks for that, Jorge. Yeah, we don't have to do any of this alone. Anybody else on the rim? Jason. Hi, Jason.
Hi there. In 1985, I had the opportunity to kayak through the Grand Canyon for 15 days.
Wow.
In hindsight, I saw how many blessings in the hand of God there was just to get me there. And then once I started taking classes, I saw how much profit was there throughout the whole trip with me. One of the great things that I saw is after like day one, I was really so much in the moment for like the next 14, 15 days. It was incredible. We'd get up with the sun in the morning. We'd go to bed after a campfire at night. We camped on the beach. We cooked there. We fished for fish, ate fresh fish. We went for hikes. And every day kind of built on the day before it. So every day I would say was more wonderful than the day before because I had the experiences from the day before to add into the next ones. The other thing that was really cool was the Grand Canyon. When you're kayaking through it, because the way the water ate the canyon away, you're actually going deeper and deeper each day when you paddle down into the Grand Canyon. So your experience is a little bit different. And like I said, it builds on everything else. And I think that experience when I was young changed my life. It was a pivotal point. It was one of the most incredible experiences I had up to that point.
And I think to reinforce what you said, if you watched a video, a crew like that filming it, and then they put it online so you can watch it, it wouldn't have changed you. You said, what do you say? It was a pivotal point in your life?
Absolutely.
I don't think the video would. It might have inspired you, but it had to be the experience. And here's the same experience. Here's the same Grand Canyon. Dell was at the rim looking down, maybe saw the river in certain spots, and you were down at the very bottom on the river looking up. A whole different experience with the same thing, the Grand Canyon. And every time we meet the Heavenly Father or Jesus on these inner travels or go to temples, even if it's the same thing, we each see come at it from different angles and sides. And I go back to what when Lisa talked, I think we get the experience that we're supposed to get. And I believe we credit the divine for showing us what we need. Where somebody else on that same river trip might have got something totally different with some overlap, of course. But you lost your dad when you were young. I know that affected you for many years. Maybe that somehow got you going again in life. Back in the river of life, which is a story of testimony, it used to be called the river of life. Maybe that helped heal you from, I actually ask you, you lost your dad in a very quick, he had a heart attack. And I know that closed you down in many ways for a long time till a prophet took you back and got to see your dad again in the heavenly worlds. Do you think that connect to get you re-going in life after the disappointment, the experience of losing your dad?
Oh, absolutely. That trip was so invigorating. And I joke, if you had talked to me like within a year and a half of me going to the Grand Canyon, you'd have to listen to me talk for about an hour and a half.
Yeah.
I mean, it was so alive, and just reliving it and experiencing it. It really did reinvigorate me in a wonderful way. It was a positive experience.
but it was the experience at the Grand Canyon, but different than Dell and Kate standing on the rim. Very cool. Anything else on that? Yeah, Gary, and then Rebecca.
Well, something that keeps coming to me is, me included, we all let fear keep us from experiences, from following our hearts and things we want to do. And it came up years ago where a lot of times the fear is something, it's keeping you from something that's really good for you. It's blocking you from something that's positive, or accepting a gift or an experience from God. And it takes a little courage, and we can ask for courage. We can ask for help. We can ask to help make that first step. But I know fear keeps a lot of people from experiencing things.
I like that you said you can ask for the strength to do something to help you get past the fear.
Yeah.
I'm thinking of Joyce Myers, a beautiful Christian teacher we've listened to on and off for many years. She said in one of her talks one time, she was fearful of public speaking. Imagine what we'd be missing if she let fear stop her from doing what was in her heart. She said, I think years ago I heard this, she was fearful, but she did it anyway. So we can do it anyway, but maybe she didn't know what we know now. We could do it anyway to gain an experience, but we can also ask for strength and help. I don't know if she knew she could ask for strength and help at that early part of her ministry, but she did it anyway. And I'm so grateful she followed her passion and didn't stop just because she's afraid of public speaking. Yeah. Anything else on that? Fear. Dell wrote a beautiful key about fear is a condenser. I think it's a parable in here somewhere where you have fear of something, you don't do it. Then fear of something else, and pretty soon your life shrinks to where you can hardly get out of a chair. So I think it's good to know we can ask for strength to overcome fear. And also, if it's fear of skydiving, ask to make sure that's a good idea in the first place. Use a little discernment also. Maybe that's something you just want to have a placeholder. That might be the best thing and not an actual experience. But ask and you'll find out if it's right for you. Anything else on the rim? It seemed like experience is how we grow. As soul, I don't think the placeholders help us grow. I think all the experience we have over at least one life or more makes us who we are today. So I think what Gary said, if you really want to do something and a little fearful, use some discernment, ask for guidance from the divine. But I hope that maybe today's video helped people, unless it's extraordinary fear, which might be prudent, to not let fear slow them down from to having the experiences that might help them grow and mature and see life from a higher view. So I see another cat. Jorge's got a kitty. I think that's 2 or 3 kitties on screen today. Very cool. No doggies today. Anybody else? Yes, Rebecca. Thank you. I forgot.
Real quick, what I heard in Jason's story about the kayaking, the first day he had a wonderful experience, and then each day, the previous day's experience built, and it just became better and better. And I'm thinking about seeking God's love, and you'll have an experience, and then you build upon that experience and you grow in that love. Trying to think where I want to go with this. It's not a one and done. You just don't have this great big wonderful moment and it's over. God keeps giving you more. As you grow, he gives you more. He nourishes you as you seek and as you grow.
You could be an opera singer, possibly. I think I don't know if I'm eloquent enough to explain it, but Jason's time on the river for a couple of weeks, where each day was more stuff, but he brought some of the good experiences the day before. I see that as a metaphor for how to live life.
Yes.
You live your life, relationships change, jobs changes, but you take some of the good, like we talked about in the Sandbox that Jess brought up. You take some of the good memories, the love, the lessons, the growth, and you move to the next day of our life. I think what you're saying, I don't know if I'm saying it clearly. The way Jason lived that 2 weeks in the not the liver, the river, is a kind of a good way to live our life.
Yes. And
when relationships change, you can be sad, but take some of the good stuff, what you learned about life, about yourself, and apply it to make the next one better. So each day is better, but you're bringing the memories. It goes back to the sand that was recycled out of the sandbox in the last parable, and a little chunk of plastic would show up. Dale could have gone, dang, this sand is a mess with this plastic, but instead it opened his heart. Little faded pieces that used to be so colorful, and it bring back good memories. To take all that to the next day. And then once you get that day, add it and take it to the next day. I think that's what you're saying.
yes, in that growth, in that 2-week period, he couldn't condense all those experiences into 1 week. It took that time to build into that, and then you look back and it's like, oh my, look at this, just beautiful experiences and how it changed him. It wasn't just okay, I had this experience, I changed. It was a gradual at what Jason needed.
I think what the last parable, the sandbox, I got from Jess and others, and this, and what you're saying, we're talking about experiences are different than placeholders, but they're not one and done.
Yes.
These experiences shape us, they mold us, they make us kind of who we are. And we take this experience that's not one and it may be one and done experience, but there's residuals in those experiences we incorporate in our next experience of life.
Thank you.
And then we incorporate the residuals of those experiences. So they're kind of one and done. You jump out of a plane one time or whatever. But what you get from that or learn from that, you take some of that into the next experiences. And it makes us who we are.
Yes.
And if we choose the right thoughts and attitudes, like in the last parable, more positive, we work towards more positive experiences and less anger and hate and mean type experiences, more positive, we can build a life that's pretty darn abundant. That might be a reflection of the way God would like us to live. And going back to what Dell said, maybe somebody sees that. How do you do it? And then we can maybe point them in a certain direction where they can get some help and they can find it hopefully for themselves. Very cool. Thank you for that.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jason. Yeah, it's like the experiences are one and done, the particular experience, but what you take, the lessons you bring into, it's part of you, and you bring it into the next relationship or the next experience. These two parables go together really beautiful. And I think all of them, God, like Dell talks about, you want to live with your heart smiling for the most part. If you choose experiences with your heart smiling and not full of hate and anger, you'll build the type of life you want. And I see so many people now so focused on judgment, hate and anger and fear, it cuts them off from the beautiful part of life. It really isolates themselves, and it's really sad. So, anything else? Good day. Maria. Hi, Maria. I just barely caught you up in the corner there.
Thank you. If I look at page 120 of the room, and Dale talks about these pictures that are in his mind of experiences that he's never seen or experienced. So I see the pictures like taking the experience and making them operational. And in Jason's story about the 2 weeks on the river, he took his experience and went deeper and experienced the fullness of the gifts and the blessings. And it's a beautiful parable, and I like what Gary had said earlier and D4 said earlier about it's actually the room is about our journey home towards God, and basically, you know, standing at the room for yourself and being given the eyes to see. You know, we all given eyes to see and experience differently. That's perfect for us.
Thank you. One of the things I got out of that was his placeholder. This is an image I just got when you shared, Maria. His placeholder is in black and white and a very low resolution, not many pixels, but it's at least a placeholder. But when he went to the rim, it became full color and high resolution. So I'd rather, but you don't get to the full color, high resolution from a placeholder. It has to be through the experience, which is kind of through both of these parables. I really like that image. Thank you for giving that to me.
Thank you.
I'm concerned about how people in this country so polarized. I think the placeholders are so different than when you meet somebody. All this talking negative about different people or how they vote or their politics. I really hope this helps a little bit in that area. Or maybe don't get too locked down on the placeholder. I love that word. And be open when you have actually meet somebody, and be receptive and flexible. It may be totally different than your placeholder. Are we good on the two parables? Pretty much. We probably always miss something. God loves you. He's always loved you. He loves you right this moment. He will always love you. You all know that. And you know it how? By experience. It's so different. Faith is so beautiful, but you know it by experience. Jesus has always loved you, will always love you. It loves you right now from experience. And you know the comfort and profit are absolutely real. And there's always one here. We're never alone. We never have to do anything by ourselves. May the blessings be. For you mothers out there, thank you. What a privilege to be a mom. What a sacred opportunity to raise a child of God and being entrusted to raise and get them where they can live a good, abundant life on their own. And it's so sad some people in politics now demean motherhood. I think it's just so sad. I'm not a mom, obviously, but it must be one of the most rewarding things you could ever do to be a mom. So, and be entrusted by God with a child to nurture and raise. Wow. And to love. Thank you.